Okay, take your head up off the desk. We are at the end of political geography. That's right. I mean, I personally really like it. Hopefully, you enjoyed some of it, but now it's time to finish this up. And we wrap it up with this: international organizations and cooperation. Most countries, most states have chosen to be connected to some form of international cooperative body. We generally categorize these types of organizations or cooperatives as political, economic, military, or regional organizations or cooperatives. Now, as you see, there's certainly going to be overlap amongst each one of these categories. Historically, there were alliances on this planet, going back thousands of years, but usually these were military alliances. However, at the end of World War I, which ends in 1918, and World War I, if you know about history, was called the War to End All Wars. We can see it did not succeed in that. So at the end of World War I, largely at the behest and pushing forward of Woodrow Wilson, American President Woodrow Wilson, the League of Nations was created. Now, the League of Nations was the first attempt to take all the countries of the world, put them into one single body, with the idea being that we would prevent war primarily. Unfortunately, one of the things that happened was the United States never joined the League of Nations. And as a result of that, the League of Nations wasn't successful, and we got World War II. But out of World War II comes a much more successful organization, the United Nations, or the UN. The UN is a political, economic, and to a small extent, a military cooperative or organization, if that's what you'd like to call it. It's the largest international organization, and it's the largest international organization that has really ever existed. It's designed to be a place where countries can discuss things like economic issues, political issues, health issues, educational issues, military issues, all of those things. Now, there are two countries, I put this in quotes for a reason, that are not members of the UN. Everybody else is a member of the UN. You tell me, who are the two countries? Okay, I'll wait. You, over there with your hand up. Excellent. Anybody got the other answer? That's correct. Very good. Taiwan and the Vatican. Those are the two countries that are not members of the UN. All the rest of the countries in the world are part of the UN. And the headquarters of the UN are in New York City. There's the UN building. I've been there myself many times. It's on the east side of Midtown Manhattan. You can actually go into the building if you schedule yourself a trip into the building. There is, within the context of the United Nations, something called the United Nations Security Council. And there are 5 countries that are permanent members and carry permanent veto power within the United Nations Security Council. These are the 5 countries that won World War II. So can you tell me who those 5 countries are? Go ahead. Who are they? Okay. Good. Excellent. How about another one? Very good. Okay. Both of those start with a U. Excellent. Another one. Who else won World War II? That's right. As Americans, we don't always like to think that that's one of them. Got another one? Good and good. Excellent. There they are. The US, the United States, in other words, the UK, the United Kingdom, France, Russia, and China. Those are the 5 countries. And all 5 of those countries wield permanent veto power, and they remain on the Security Council forever. So anything that goes through the UN, any one of those 5 countries can veto it, and frequently do. There are 10 other countries that rotate through the Security Council with regularity, so everybody sits on the Security Council eventually, but only those 5 countries, the US, UK, France, Russia, and China, have veto power. So why isn't Taiwan a member? Well, look at the 5th of those 5 countries that I have listed there, China, because China considers Taiwan a breakaway province, and they do not like anyone saying that Taiwan is a legitimate country. And so China is able to veto the ability of Taiwan in getting membership for the United Nations. And as a result of that, Taiwan is not a member of the United Nations. And as I've said to you before, although I myself am a Catholic, I mean, is the Vatican really a country? So, I mean, that's kind of the reason they're not in it. Then there's the Organization of American States, also known as the OAS. And this includes all 35 states in the Western Hemisphere. Okay, so all 35 countries in the Western Hemisphere. And it promotes economic and cultural links between the members. Its headquarters is in Washington, D.C. It's really economic, cultural, and regional because it is a Western Hemisphere organization. The USMCA, which is the United States, Mexico, and Canada agreement that used to be known as NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. There are 3 countries in this. You can guess who they are: Canada, the United States, and Mexico. This is really economic and regional. It promotes free trade amongst its members. So what about something called AFTA? This has been spoken about many times. The American Free Trade Agreement. Well, it hasn't ever come about. There was a time when it looked like Chile might join this, but this is kind of off the table for the time being. But I would not be surprised if at some point the USMCA kind of grows into a version of an AFTA where more countries in the Western Hemisphere join. The European Union, also known as the EU. You can see its headquarters are in Brussels. Did I tell you there aren't really strict headquarters for the USMCA? There's not. But for the EU, there are headquarters in Brussels, Belgium. It's kind of weird. Belgium's not a big country, but Belgium nevertheless plays an important role. The European Union is kind of political, but definitely economic and cultural and regional. Currently, it has 27 members. There's a little bit of movement within the EU, but let's say for the moment there's 27. I'm not making you know the number. I just want you to know this. It's most of the countries in Western Europe and most of the countries in Eastern Europe. That's what makes up the EU. And the European Union is a unified group of countries that practices economic cooperation, like no green cards, so you can go work in other people's countries without having to have special permission to do that, and no passports, so you can cross land borders. You don't have to show a passport. In most cases, when you fly in and out, you're supposed to show a passport, but when you move across borders, you can show like a driver's license or whatever. And open markets to its members while permitting political sovereignty. So the countries remain sovereign, but there is a political component to this as well. Now, there are things called trading blocs. A trading bloc is an organization that promotes the free flow of goods and services between member states without tariffs or restrictions. This is basically what both the USMCA and the EU are. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, which is also known as OPEC. OPEC's headquarters are in Vienna. This is definitely an economic organization. Now, this changes also, but currently there are 15 members, but countries kind of go in and out of OPEC. The weird thing is that although the headquarters are in Vienna, Austria, Austria is not a member and Austria doesn't have oil. So go figure that one out. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is NATO. NATO is political, military, and regional, but it is primarily about the military. And its headquarters, once again, is in Brussels, Belgium. You can see the map of the countries that are in it. There are currently 30 members. Again, this changes a little bit. Generally, it's growing, but there are 30 members. And NATO was designed after World War II to counterbalance the power of the Soviet Union. Because at the end of World War II, Western Europe was decimated. The United States, of course, was not, but we had really become the unquestioned powerhouse globally. But the Soviet Union was also a winner in World War II. And the fear was that they could march across Western Europe and essentially enslave the West European countries in communist dictatorships like they'd done with Eastern Europe and what they'd done with the countries that are around them, Ukraine, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and all of those countries. And that was a fear because that would mean the United States would be a very isolated place. So NATO was founded to act as a counterbalance, to keep the Russians from invading Western Europe and keep Western Europe secure, capitalist, democratic. And obviously this has worked largely. And you can see the headquarters in Brussels. You can see all the flags that are all member states. Okay, there are also non-state actors. These are generally referred to as non-governmental organizations or NGOs. Okay, so These are nonprofit organizations that operate independently of governments. They rely overwhelmingly on donations. So they're not making profits. And they play parts in international development, in aid, especially in places where there's been disasters, philanthropy in general, assistance, again, especially where there's been disasters, or helping people get clean water, or flush toilets and all things like that. Human rights issues, all of those things. And here's some. The United Nations has a list that has hundreds of them. Amnesty International, you probably heard of that. Human Rights Watch, you probably heard of that. The Red Cross and the Red Crescent, you undoubtedly heard of those. World Wildlife Fund, Oxfam, which is the Oxford Committee for Famine Relief, so it tells you kind of what it's about. Greenpeace. All of these are versions of NGOs. All right. Hope you enjoyed political geography. See you as we move along. Oh, wait, you had a question for me? Well, we're doing this online. You can't exactly ask a question like that, but feel free to email me.